Hello guys, this is Pigments36, and in today's video we're going to look at making some rusty effects for your spare tracks. I know there's lots of discussion about how rusty spare tracks actually got in real life. A lot of people say they didn't get rusty, or some people say they did get a little bit rusty. I'm not sure. My weathering style is a little bit artistic, so of course you can take what I do here and make it less rusty or more rusty or whatever you like to do. This is just supposed to be kind of inspiration about how you can do a technique, but you can use whatever colors and products you'd like. These are all the products I use to make the rusty tracks. As you can see, we have some base paints, some enamel products, and of course some pigments. As for the brushes, I'm using simple $4 or $5 ones I buy at the art store, which are the ones that say they're good for acrylic paints and oil paints. I use them for everything. To begin, I'm airbrushing a base color of the tracks. It's about a 50-50 mix of XF72 and XF69. I thin it with lacquer thinner because it sprays better that way, I find. And yeah, you should probably wear gloves when you do this, but I don't care. But yeah, I recommend you wear gloves or something on your hands. It washes off right away anyway, so it's okay, I think. But really this color is just like a nice base color of the tracks. If anything shows through at the end, it looks like a nice kind of grayish brown color. Same thing I use on all tracks, as you can see here. To begin with the rust effects, I'm applying a overall coating of this dark rust effect from Wilder. I'm not sure exactly what this is. It seems like it's a very thick wash, and I'm just using it in the way that I think I'm supposed to use it. I'm applying it heavily over the tracks. So not as a wash, not just in the details, I'm just applying it over the entire thing. And since it's quite thick, it won't run into the details, it'll stay on the surfaces. And then in the end, when it dries, it leaves a nice kind of rusty color on the track links. Make sure you cover the entire track link all over the guide horns too, because those often end up getting not as much pigment on them later when we buy the pigments. So this will help to kind of begin with the rusting effects. Also in some areas I apply more to certain links just to pick them out, and then later on when it dries, as you can see in the end here, some track links will be a little bit more rusty. Once it all dries, this is the effect you get. As you can see, we have some overall rusty effects in the tracks. They're a little bit varied because, as I mentioned, I apply more to certain areas to get that heavier rust effect, just to make it look a lot less boring. Now I'm doing some speckling techniques. This is of course entirely optional. You can just do whatever you like, but I'm just doing this to kind of build up an initial rusty texture before I actually apply the pigments. I find this helps in the areas like the guide horns that often receive less of the pigment during the next step. As you can see, I'm flicking the brush with my finger, which causes the paint to fly off in little specks, and then that lands on the tracks and makes a nice kind of rusty texture. If you don't have a speckling effect like this, just take whatever product you're using before, which would be like, a nail rust effect or a streaking grime, and then just add more pigment to it to make it thicker. Then it will speckle nicely. As you can see on this example here, the tracks on the left don't have the speckling effect, and the ones on the right do. And now here, all the tracks have the speckling effect, which you can see most obviously on the raised edges there. It looks nice and rusty. Now for the pigments. This step is the most important one. It kind of adds the final textures and kind of blends and everything like that. Makes everything look nice together. I'm using burnt umber, light rust, burnt rust, and dry mud, which are basically a kind of reddish brown, orange, yellow, and then a final dusty color at the end. Now for this example here, I'm going to show you the entire thing uncut, sped up a little bit, but I want you to see the entire process here. So as you can see, I'm going by individual links at the beginning, picking out certain ones that I want to be a certain color. So these two here, I'm kind of working with this orange one, and then I take a little bit brownish one, apply some of it to this link here because I want it to be a different color. Then I apply a little bit of yellow to it as well because I want it to be a little kind of lighter than that. And overall, it's just kind of like at the beginning, I pick out individual links and give them a base color of one of the pigments. And then after I'm happy with each one having a little bit of a different tone, then I take all the pigments, kind of layer them all over another again, just to kind of finally blend everything together a little bit, make it look more unified. And at the very end I take the light dust and then just kind of blend everything. So for example, this one here, making it dark with the dark pigment. And overall, having the individual links having slightly different colors between them adds some contrast and interest, which makes the track link not just like a rusty mass, it makes it kind of like individual different colors in each one. It just makes it more interesting that way. Then now I'm kind of going back at the end and taking some of the pigments and just going over individual tracks, but kind of also blending them with the ones beside, because I don't want it to be just like this one's yellow, this one's red, this one's brown. I want them to all be similar colors, just have slightly different hues because they've had more of one of the pigments applied to them. Now at this point I'm happy with the effect, so I take a little bit of the dry mud, and then I lightly dust it over the track links here because I want them to kind of be a little more blended together, and also looking kind of dusty because they're on a tank that is dusty and dirty. Also the tank is a winter whitewash one, so it's quite light, so this kind of makes everything a little lighter and less contrasty with the actual base color. I'm being careful with how much I apply here because I don't want to overdo this and immediately blend everything together into the same color. Now in this example here, I'm showing a close-up. Basically this track link, I'm picking it with the orange rusty color at the beginning, and then the one beside it here, I give it a base color of the darker reddish brown one. And this builds up that initial contrast I was talking about. And then now with the base color kind of being different between the two, I take a little bit of the same orangey rust color on the other link and apply it into the little gap there where the tracks link together on the darker link. And then now I'm just kind of doing the overall blending back and forth, now that I'm happy with the base color and the contrast between the two. So this is some of the yellow one, and I'm applying it kind of as a highlight to make a little bit of like almost like a texture, as you can see there. And then now, since I'm happy with it, I'm doing the dusty effects with the dry mud. As you can see, I'm kind of focusing it here on the guide horns because those are often missed. And then I decided to pick out the top of this one with a little bit more of the dust to make it a little bit lighter, at least on the edges here, just adding a little bit of interest to it. And then I want the bottom of this one to be a little bit darker, so I take some of the brownish one and apply it here. Now here I'm just kind of doing some final blending with my brush, which is just dry because I want to just kind of lightly blend everything together a little bit more. Final touches, stuff like that. But overall the track link is pretty much done now. And this is the result here. It's probably a little more obvious here because it's on a blue background, but you do have some contrast here, a little bit of rust going, but overall just kind of like a brownish oxidized kind of nasty track color. Now to recap what I'm doing with the pigment here to get the rusty effect. Basically I'm taking the yellow, the orange, and the brown pigment, applying it individually at first to some of the track links, so apply brown to this one, orange to this one, yellow to this one, and give them individual different colors at the beginning. Then once I'm happy with that, I take the same three colors and kind of dust over the whole thing in general to blend everything together and make it more unified. Also, depending on how you apply it, you can kind of stipple it on and you get kind of like rusty textures going. You can see that obviously on the tracks here. And then at the final touch, when I'm happy with all that, I take the dry mud pigment and lightly dust everything to blend it all together. And now here is the result on the tank. As you can see, we have a nice kind of rusty brownish color that goes nicely with the colors of the tank already. It's not too contrasty because it's not too bright orange or dark. And as you can see also here, I apply a little bit of white oil paint to that section of track to make it more whitewashed. This kind of implies that that section of track was applied to the tank before it was whitewashed, and maybe the other ones were found later. Overall, just another way to add interest to your tank like this. You can get different tones and different effects with the spare tracks in the vehicle. Now of course you can do the similar effect, but using different products here. Like as you can see, I'm going through some examples here. This track link is a lot darker in color because I applied more of a brownish pigment to it, but then also little specks of kind of bright rust on there. And over here I used a lighter speckling effect, which you can see kind of made the whole track link in general a little bit lighter red, and also applied more of the rust color to it, which is probably a little unrealistic. I don't think they would get this rusty, but it's just a cool effect in general. And of course, in the standard weathering procedure video on the Stug here, I didn't use any enamel effects at all for the rusty tracks. I gave them a base coat of black, then applied some of the brownish pigment I just showed, and also some red pigment, lightly dusted it, and overall I got kind of a more muted brownish effect on these tracks, which is just what I was going for in that tank. So as always, I hope you learned something new, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As I showed here in the end, you don't have to do exactly what I did. You can use whatever products and pigments you like. It's all about just making the tank or whatever process you're doing yours. My videos are mainly meant to be more of an inspirational guide about how you can do certain effects using whatever products you have at your disposal. Also, big thanks to my Patreons, Samuel Murphy and Ricky from Ryan's Painting. They're helping me out here by giving me a few dollars every month, and it definitely helps because, I'm sure as you guys know, making videos like this definitely isn't cheap. So as always, thanks for watching very much, guys. This is Pigments 36, and I'll see you next video. Goodbye.